Sabrina the MVP, Emma Meesseman in New York, Diamond Miller in New York, but with Dallas. Lots of interesting things to talk about with Jackie Powell, who's always interesting. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I am delighted to welcome you. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Over 350,000 of you showed up in June. I got to run the numbers on July, but they were way up, showing up for us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. Thank goodness, not just me, but really good hosts like Jackie Powell do the work as well. And of course, it is folks on the team side as well. We've got individual team podcasts about the Valkyries, about the Fever, many more and more to come. So again, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to The Nine Basketball, powered by The Next, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month. The Nine Basketball, yeah, that's a rebrand, or thenexthoops.com. Sign up, $9 a month, $72 a year. It all just gets sent to your inbox, the steady stream, an IV of women's basketball coverage, the kind of which we all need to survive. And somebody who provides an absurd amount of it is the great Jackie Powell, who is in the guest chair today in Barclays Center, undisclosed location, but it's quiet, not right by Barbra Streisand. And so here to talk to us about a lot of things. We're going to talk more later in the show about Emma Meesseman and the fact that she is here. What does it mean? What will it mean? And how will we measure what it all means? Plus, Diamond Miller, now a member of the Dallas Wings, joining the Wings in New York. Really interesting conversation Jackie had with her, but we're going to start here. I have said on the program, Napheesa Collier is my MVP. I do have a media vote. I'll be making this vote at the end of the year. I am always transparent about who I vote for and why. I haven't had a moment's pause, but here's your pause. Napheesa Collier now out for the next couple of weeks with an ankle injury. And there's some people who are talking about Sabrina Ionescu as an MVP. So, Jackie, let's start there. Give me the Sabrina MVP case in a nutshell.
I want to be clear and say that I'm not sure if Sabrina Ionescu's case is at the level of Napheesa Collier's, but I think the point I want to make is there is a case for her to get some MVP votes and for her to be ranked pretty high. And I guess as you asked, I'll take the listeners through some of the evidence that we've seen. So since the All-Star break, Sabrina Ionescu has averaged 25.6 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, 5.9 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game on 50.4% shooting.
That's overall. That's not from two. That's overall.
Yes.
God.
The 91.7% from free throw or from the foul line. And she's had the most 30-point games over that span. So 3. And that's besting Napheesa Collier. So
can I just jump in real quick and say she's now north of 50% from two? And just how crazy that is. She was at 46.3% from two last year. I know this is a thing we've talked about and you've written about extensively. She was 38.3% from two back in 2023. Just look at this massive jump in her overall efficiency. That's astonishing for a player at her stage in her career to find another level on that offensive end.
I mean, you could see it against Connecticut on Sunday. She was so efficient, and she only took 2 3-pointers and made one of them. So this was, okay, the defense is going to run her off the 3-point line. it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. I mean,
Never mind. I mean, that was I tuned in after the fact. And so first I was grabbing a box score and I'm like, oh, Sabrina, 36, 12 threes. You know, what did she have? And it's like, no, really, 1 3, and she still got 36 points. I mean, it just speaks to the offensive versatility. Absolutely.
and I mean, she's spoken to reporters about this, in that she knew that she needed to improve the rest of her game. And she specifically focused on her mid-range, which is interesting because, as we know, the Liberty, they very much so play to the percentages.
Mm-hmm.
They're all about easy shots at the rim versus shots beyond the arc. But I think for Sabrina, it's always been about, can she be a creator? Because people know that she's been a really good pick and roll guard. And so I think for her, she wants to become someone who, when her team needs a bucket or something, and there's a bit of a crunch, that she could be a go-to.
Well, can I speak to something really specifically about that? And you'll have more insight into this as well. But there's a real easy way of thinking about where you get your shots that is purely a function of, well, mid-range is lower percentage, beyond the three and at the rim is higher percentage. But of course, when you are, especially in Sabrina's case, in an offense where you're also creating, it also gives you an opportunity. If you are a threat from 15 feet, you also have the ability, A, to then have an easier path to the basket, and B, be able to find your teammates everywhere they are on the court, many of whom, in New York's instances, even the bigs, Jonquel Jones, an example of this, Breanna Stewart, an example of this, are the ones who are beyond the three-point line. So doesn't the calculation change a little bit when you're thinking possession by possession where she needs to be her most lethal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, the fact that her gravitational pull is going to make shots easier for her teammates. I mean, you and I have spoken a lot about how when Jonquel Jones was out, it was much more difficult for Breanna Stewart to find efficiency. And as we know, because Jonquel Jones was out, Breanna Stewart's bandwidth was stretched out. And as a result, she's going to be out for around a month with this bone bruise to make sure that she's fresh for the postseason. And so, the same sort of goes for Sabrina Ionescu, or actually the same goes for Jonquel Jones and now Emma Meesseman, where if Sabrina Ionescu is picking up a trap 2 to the ball, JJ and Emma are going to be in space, and they're going to have the room to score, to make things happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how anyone defends that. We'll talk more about that later on in the show. But again, it goes back to, for all that we talk about Point Stewie, Sabrina is one of the handful of New York Liberty players with an assist percentage north of 30%. So, again, as you kind of go back to that case, I think there's useful context also for people to understand. She is taking some more mid-range, but this is not like a Courtney Williams, Cappie Pondexter situation, right? Like it's still like 12% of her shots are coming from 10 to 16, 7% are coming from between 16 feet out in the three-point line. But look at the percentage that she's making them. 10 to 16, she was 19.2% 2 years ago. Now that's 52.8%. She was at 8.7% accuracy from between 16 feet and the three-point line 2 years ago. That's up to 48.4%. So, part of what makes something a high percentage shot is making a high percentage of them, which is something that she's now doing.
Yeah, and I think what this also comes down to is that Sabrina Ionescu is in the best shape of her career. And I've seen many videos on Instagram of her strength and conditioning. I guess it's not a coach, it's more the person who she hired to help her do strength and conditioning work during the off season. And I believe he did work with her husband as well, but that's a whole other situation. he posted the strength and conditioning employee. He posted a bunch of videos of Sabrina doing all of these different exercises to try to get herself stronger, and different like agility workouts. And so this is, yeah, we see Sabrina Ionescu doing a Nike tour in Asia, but we don't see what she was doing behind the scenes after she was recovering from the finger. Sure, we saw her in an Unrivaled a little bit, but we didn't see what she was doing during the practice time where players could really fine tune their games. Sabrina Ionescu is someone who has taken it upon herself to try to get better every single year she's been in the WNBA. And I think the one thing I want to add about her is she has been referring to herself as this team's point guard.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that fascinating. She still is a combo guard, but she very much wants to be as reliable as she is on the ball as she is off of it.
Yeah.
She obviously got to experience that a lot in 2024 when Courtney Vandersloot was mourning the death of her mother. And to be quite honest, the Liberty are at their best when the ball is in her hands and when she has a backcourt partner who can play off the ball as well.
No, I want to get to break, but I want to talk more about that very specifically because it really matters now with Point Stewie on the shelf. So a lot more with Jackie Powell, talking New York Liberty, talking Dallas wins ahead of tonight's New York versus Dallas matchup at Barclays Center. More after this. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, and it is time to fuel up and turn it up with the 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. I can't even imagine. My golf game is bad enough without alcohol, so good that this doesn't have it. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, I'm definitely more of the latter type of player. This one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. So here's how you get it. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, and that's number 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. Back here at Locked On Women's Basketball, I'm Howard Megdal. With me, Jackie Powell. Want to talk about two things as they relate to Sabrina. And again, that MVP case, just to summarize it for me, is this, right? If Napheesa Collier misses the minimum 2 weeks, she's back. She plays at the level she was playing at before the injury. I don't know that there's an opening. If Fee is out for an extended period of time and Sabrina has stepped up her game, and they find a way specifically to catch Minnesota, I think that's a lot. That's a lot of ifs, but I think that's what her path is to get there from here. Is that where you see it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think as it stands right now, it's fair to give her some second, third place votes. That's sort of where I'm at with it.
I mean, she's clearly on my all WNBA first team. That is without question something where she is. And yeah, certainly in that top 3 to 4 conversation as well. Alyssa Thomas in that conversation as well. There's a lot to be had, and we will be having it here over the coming weeks ahead. But the other part of this that I think, and this relates to Emma as well, is that Sabrina has turned herself into a plus. Tell me if you think this is overstating it. She's clearly improved. I think she's a plus defensive player at this point in the league. And that is a huge deal when everyone else is going to be on your finishing lineup down the stretch once everyone is healthy and integrated is 11 feet tall.
I mean, I think Sabrina's defense has drastically improved, but I do think that, when she's at her moments of most fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
that's sometimes when she returns back to what she was, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
When
Sure.
she when she is focused, she is much better than she was last year, she was in 2023, and especially when she first entered the league in 2021 and 2022, both those years not the most healthy. But I think it reminds me of how Skylar Diggins-Smith became a much better defender in the
Mm-hmm.
WNBA. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a common thread between the two of them, and that is head coach Sandy Brondello.
That is correct. Yes.
So,
Not her first rodeo.
no, not at all.
I will say, part of it to me, and maybe this is a distinction that doesn't really matter, but part of it to me is the fact that she is so drastically improved defensively. She's become a better player than I thought was a reasonable expectation for her ceiling coming into the league. And I say that as somebody because you remember we were covering back then too. I thought she was a franchise changer. I thought she had the chance to be the best player potentially on a championship team. It wasn't like I came in thinking, she's going to be a role player. But I didn't think it was reasonable to expect her to be able to turn the corner offensively, get into the hole the way she has now been able to do. And I thought the best you could hope for was somebody who wasn't going to be so problematic defensively that you had to sub her out at critical points. And she is worlds away from that. It also, again, how good does she have to be defensively when Emma Meesseman is going to be on the floor full time, when Brianna Stewart is back, John Paul Jones is there as well, and Leo Fibich, who is just an amazing defensive player at this point in her career. You put all that together, and she just has to be good, right? Like Natasha Cloud's really good on ball defending, but you don't necessarily need her for a closing lineup because of Sabrina's improvement at that end. So where I think it matters most, Sabrina's improvements, is right now, this next month, where the New York Liberty are without Brianna Stewart. Brianna Stewart becoming point Stewie in some fundamental ways opened up the offense, but what it also meant was her being out made it a more difficult adjustment than you'd already have incorporating someone like Emma Meesseman in. So, where are those pain points? Where are those areas to most address? I know you're working on a piece for us over at the Next about this.
So it's actually really interesting because something that Emma Meesseman continues to talk a lot about is the fact that there's just so much familiarity across this team. I know when it came to Minnesota being a potential landing point, people were like, oh, Eric Tebow, the Tebows, she loves the Tebows. But when you really look at New York and what they had to offer, there's so much familiarity. I mean, her relationship with Andrew Wade, who is the director of player development at the New York Liberty, that will very much so be a part of the story that I am working on at thenexthoops.com. That was a huge factor in her decision. But the reason I bring up the familiarity is she talks about how she's played with JJ before, she's played with Stewie before, she's played with Natasha Cloud before, she's played with Niara Sabali before, all overseas. But she hasn't played with Sabrina before. And so I asked her this morning, so, what has it been like so far? How has Sabrina, I guess, surprised you? You've obviously just have competed against her instead of being on a team with her.
Mm-hmm.
And Emma's answer was fascinating because the first thing she pointed toward was Sabrina's leadership and how Sabrina is always in Emma's ear. She's always asking her, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? This is the terminology that we use. Where are you most comfortable? How can I make you the most comfortable? Like, Sabrina has very much so been a part of this integration process for Emma Meesseman. And
That does not surprise me. That very much reflects, I know, your previous reporting too about the growth of Sabrina overall as a player, as a person in this market. Uh, it does feel like having her there sets Emma up for success. I will just say, and before we're gonna get to break. I want to talk a little bit more about this before we get over to Diamond Miller, because there is still there are some bumps in the road, even with the very best players that New York now has to navigate. That's a little more complicated than when this first happened. So back with Jackie Powell in just a minute about that. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Monarch Money. Now, did you ever wish that managing your money felt easier? I mean, I can't imagine anyone who doesn't. Monarch Money gives you the chance to feel that relief. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It is like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. As somebody who owns a small business, let me tell you, this is so valuable. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Howard Megdal here, Locked On Women's Basketball, talking to the great Jackie Powell. And just before we get to Diamond, to finish up that thought as it relates to the Liberty, you have to incorporate Emma Meesseman, who, and I've talked about this on the show previously, one of, to my mind, the three greatest mid-year acquisitions in WNBA history. And you go Katie Smith 2005, Sylvie Fowles 2015, Emma Meesseman 2025. But now you have to do it basically twice, right? They're going to have to spend the next month playing one kind of offense. And then when Breanna Stewart comes back, she's going to have to reintegrate. And at the same time, they're going to have to work together. Does that create too much of a barrier to get to by the playoffs? Or you think because of the players involved, this is just not something New York is going to end up having a problem doing?
I mean, I think it's going to be hard. Saying that it's going to be easy breezy, I think would be naive of me to say. But I think because of the people that they have in the locker room and around this situation, I think it's possible for them to achieve some level of success and go on a deep playoff run. And I think what it comes down to is who Emma Meesseman is on and off the floor. I think about other players of her stature and of her talent who probably would not be able to adapt and adjust like this. And it comes down to her philosophy when it comes to the game of basketball. I had a chat with Andrew Wade this morning, and he sort of said, Emma doesn't really care how many touches she has or someone else has. What Emma cares about is about winning games and just winning in general. And essentially, to be on the New York Liberty, you have to be about winning. That's it. You can't be about yourself. You have to do whatever needs to be done in order for the team to win. And so that whole, I guess, statement of thought, or rather mission statement, that's a better word. That whole mission statement fits in with Emma Meesseman's ethos. It really does. And so, yes, there are going to be bumps in the road. She may turn the ball over a couple of times, but because Emma is one of the most instinctual players that Sandy Brondello and Olaf Lang have ever coached, there's a bet that can be made that this is going to be a successful transition.
I just would point out and add to it, the teams that were going after her were New York, were Minnesota, were Phoenix. These were not teams that have been struggling on the court this year. And so for a lot of these teams that are at the top or near the top of the WNBA, or really any league, there's often an element of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This fear of we don't want to mess with what it is that we have. None of those teams were remotely worried about that as it related to Emma Meesseman. The idea was, no, you bring in a talent at this level, not just because of the talent, but also because of the fit. So I think there's a lot to what you say. I think there's also a lot of continuity, especially in Minnesota and New York, that would help support that. Again, Sandy Brondello, Cheryl Reeve were not rookie coaches. I think those both would have been excellent fits, and they all make sense to me. I'm sorry, go ahead. You've got something else, clearly.
So I think also there's an argument to be made that the Liberty are a little bit more positionless than the Lynx are. And so, we haven't seen a lot of, like Courtney Williams is the point guard. That's sort of what the situation is in Minnesota. Sometimes maybe you see like Fee bring the ball up, but you don't. I think the point Stewie philosophy and the fact that, Emma is going to have a very big role on this team. I think that was part of it too. I mean, Alana Smith is a very important front court piece to the Minnesota Lynx. How happy would she have been to sacrifice her role? The defense she plays, the fact that she is that team's defensive anchor. And then, Emma has spoken a lot about how she just wanted to be happy each and every day. And her friendship with Andrew Wade was really a swayer in this whole decision, which more on that will be in my story to come.
Really excited to read that. My gentle pushback on the idea of positionless versus positionless, not that this is the be all and end all. Minnesota with 6 different players with at least 75 attempts from 3. New York only with 4 as of right now. So I just, in terms of like floor spacing, and part of this is having covered a Minnesota Lynx team a decade ago that was extremely position full. I just want to be the way I'd use it. And everyone was very specifically a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. And when Rebecca Brunson started shooting threes, even that was sort of a jump for what they're doing. So I really think she would have fit in perfectly in Minnesota, just as I think she's fitting in perfectly here in New York. Either way, the only other thing to just, in my mind, by the time we got to game 5 of the WNBA finals, not that there's a guarantee, but if you were sort of, who are the best odds-on favorites to get there? It's New York and Minnesota now, just as it was earlier this year. And from that perspective, they had played so many hard-fought games in the regular season that everyone knew everything. These 4 games happening in August, and yes, I am very sad that none of these happened sooner, and several of these are going to happen without them both being at full strength, but they're going to be new wrinkles. If they get to the finals and there's a 7-game series, there are going to be new wrinkles between Emma, with Stewie coming back, with Fee coming back. Like, it's going to be more interesting basketball, I would argue, even than where we're at. Okay, we're almost out of time. And Diamond Miller is from New Jersey, so this is really important. You had a chance to talk to her. She's with the Dallas Wings now, former number 2 overall pick. Obviously, the trade, and Terry Horseman did a great job covering that on yesterday's show. You understand why it happened, but where has it left Diamond in Dallas? What did you hear from her?
Yeah, so I think Diamond was really excited to be in a place where she can go out and play. I think she's really chomping at the bit to be able to play. And, she talked to us about her process, like how she was told about this trade on the plane after the team left Las Vegas. And so she flew with the team to Seattle. Then she flew back to Minneapolis to get some stuff. Then she flew to Dallas to then get her physicals done so the trade could clear. Then she flew to New York to be with the team now. So it's been a rough go for Diamond Miller, but I think she's in a headspace of, I'm in a place where I'm really needed now. And I think that's something she welcomes. She talked about the Wings being this team full of underutilized players. And so I think she's excited. I think she's excited.
It's also a chance, as we've talked about, every single person other than rookie scale contracts, Kalani Brown and Lexi Brown, are free agents after the 2025 season. Diamond Miller, of course, by virtue of her draft class, is under contract in 2026 in Dallas. Somebody else they compare with Maddie Segrist and with Paige Beckers and with the rookie class that they've put together. So it makes a lot of sense for Dallas to be able to add not just somebody who's now going to get a chance to play regularly, but a controllable piece. So we're out of time. It is always great to talk to you, Jackie Powell. Really excited about that story coming up. And of course, with all the work that you are doing, cannot wait to see what's ahead for our listeners. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. We'll be back to you tomorrow, as we are 6 days a week. So until then, I'm Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Tuesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.